Over here, the Balaturim writes, Akev, Tevus Yesh Be'aser Sadibros. In the Aser Sadibros, you have 172 letters. So what does that mean? What's the Torah saying? V'zeu keshetishmein Akev Rav. In Tishma Akev, if you observe the Akev, if you observe the Aser Sadibros, which contain 172 letters, 172 words, Tiske Lama Rav Tucho Hashem Safant Lerecho. You're going to merit the ultimate what Hashem has put away for you for those who fear Him. Akev Aze Toroso Keva. Right? It says Pirkei Avos, your Torah should be primary and not secondary. And not arai. So Akev, the letters of Akev and Keva are the same letters. Akev, Anova. Akev also alludes to Anova, to humility, because the heel is the bottom of the body. Lomad min Akev, Hazeh Shehulech Acha Regel, Derech Anova. Lefichon Chen Indigev K'matz Bosa Raglayim. It's Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara says that when a person walks and you walk into a wall, what do you stub? You stub your toe. Why do you stub your toe? Because that's the front of your foot. The heel, which is in the back of your foot, doesn't get injured. It's the front of the toe. So if a person pushes himself to the front, you're more likely to be hurt. However, if it's Akev, if you have Anova, person has humility, he's protected. So Akev, Anova is a key attribute that a person should have in terms of Avodas Hashem. Then he writes over here, and if you observe the mitzvos, Vahevacho, Hashem will love you. B'schus Avrom, that's in the merit of Avrom, Shenemar, Zera Avrom, Oavi. The Zera, the progeny of Avrom, who loved me. Ubeiracho, B'schus Yitzchok, Shenemar, Bo, Vayivorach Elokim es Yitzchok. He will increase your number. B'schus Yaakov, Shenem Bo, prayer of they. It's interesting. I always say it, every day when we say the Amidah, we speak about Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchok, Elokei Yaakov. Hashem was the God of Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. And we speak about, there's a question which is asked in the commentators, the Forshim, it could say Elokei Avram, Yitzchok, Yaakov. What is it? Do we actually identify each one with Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchok, Elokei Yaakov? Seemingly, it's superfluous. We could have said Elokei once, because it's the same Elokei of Avram and Yaakov. They believe in the same God. Monotheism. So the way the Mefarshim explain that each one of the Ovos HaKadoshim assumed one of the attributes of Hashem. Avram was Chesed. That's one of the attributes of Hashem. Chesed. Yitzchak was Din. Therefore, Hashem is Din. That's one of his attributes. Midas Adin. Yaakov is what? Tiferet. That's Midas Arachmim. So that's Elokeis. Each one we know, Chazal tells, Heinein Merkovo, that the Gemara tells us, the Medrash tells us that before the Mishkan was built, what was the location of the Shechina in the world? The Shechina was exactly where Avram and Yaakov, that was the location of the Shechina. So therefore, Elokei, Avram, who actually represented Hashem, displayed the attribute, the Midas HaChesed, it's Elokei Avram. Yitzchak, who served Hashem within the context of Midas Adin, Hashem was there. Yaakov is Midas HaRachmim. And then we say, Hakel HaGodol HaGibor HaNora, Hakel HaGodol is Midas HaRachmim, Gibor is Midas Adin, and Nora awesome is Midas HaRachmim. So each one of them displayed and emulated Hashem in each one of the Midos. The Gemara has a question in Brochos. The Gemara tells us that if you say a bracha, Ein Bo Shem Malchus, if the bracha does not contain within it the Shem Hashem and Malchus, that you don't refer to Hashem as Melech HaOlam, it's not a valid bracha. So Gemara asks, so what about all the brachas of the Shemon Esrei? Every bracha concludes Baruch Atah Hashem. Baruch Atah Hashem Rotzeh B'Shuva. Baruch Atah Hashem Rofei Chol Yisrael. It doesn't say Elokeinu Melech. There's no mention of Elokei. So Gemara answers, there's a concept known as bracha smucha l'chaverto, that if one bracha is juxtaposed to another bracha, and the previous bracha is considered bracha, it's a continuation of the first bracha. Therefore, you don't have to mention Melech Olam. That's the Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara asks, but the Amida, the Shmon Esrei begins. There's no mention of Melech Olam. We say Bracha to Hashem, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. There's no mention of Melech Olam. So why is the opening bracha in the Shmon Esrei considered valid if a bracha without Shem Malchus is not considered a bracha? So our answer is that when we say Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, that's the equivalent of saying Melech Olam. Hashem is the Melech Olam. So how do we understand that? The answer is because who introduced monotheism into existence? Avram Avinu, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They themselves were the representation of the Shekhinah in the world. Therefore, mentioning that Hashem is Elokei Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and each of them only merited that because each one displayed Hashem's midah, whether it's Chesed, Din, or Rachmim. Therefore, that's equivalent of saying Hashem is Melech Olam. Although we don't say the word Melech, but that encompasses all existence. That's the way we explained it in the past. We showed many times. We speak about we find the beginning of Bria. It begins Elokim, the appellation for Hashem is Midas Adin. And then afterwards, there's a change. Hashem Elokim. Hashem is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Midas Arachmim. Elokim is Midas Adin. So why initially do we start with Midas Adin? The appellation for Hashem is Din, and then all of a sudden we mention Rachmim together with Din. So Rashi cites the Chazal, because initially Hashem wanted to create the world with Midas Adin, but because he saw the world couldn't continue, Shitifim of Midas Arachmim. He coalesced into a Midas Arachmim. Because Din is to that level of preciseness, the human being will not survive. So without Rachmim, you can't survive. Without Rachmim. We find by Karbanos, Chazal tell us, it always never mentions Elokim, the appellation of Elokim when it comes to Korban. The concept of Kapara, that Hashem gives us the opportunity to atone, to have Kapara, that's only within the context of Midas Arachmim. Within Midas Adin, there's no such thing as Kapara. You cross that line, one has to experience the consequence of that action. But if there's Midas Arachmim, one brings a Korban. Regarding Karbanis, what do we have? We have Shor Keseves. Those are the three species that qualify to bring about Kapara. The ox, the sheep, and the goat. And Chazal tell us, Shor is Avram Avinu, B'schus Avram. Kesev is B'schus Yitzchok, and Eiz is B'schus Yaakov. Shor, because Vayortz Avram El Boker, when he hosted the Malachim, it was Boker. Kesev, that's the Ayil. The Ayil is the sheep. The Olet Mimo, the Akedah. Yitzchok, Yaakov, it says, his mother told him to go to the flock to take Shnei Gedoy Yizim, to take 2 goats to prepare the delicacies for his father, that he should receive the brachos. So again, you see that the only reason why we have relevance to Kapora, to Midas Arachmim, is only in the schus, in the merit of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The same thing here. By Ekev Tishmon, if you keep the mitzvahs entirely, but why will Hashem love us? It said, why will He increase us? So the Baal Turim says everyone is alluding. It's b'schus Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Hevcha b'schus Avram. Beiracha is b'schus Yitzchak. Beirbecha is b'schus Yaakov. So again, the Ovos HaKadoshim, the foundation and the relationship at every level that we merit is always in the schus of the Ovos HaKadoshim. Without them, we couldn't survive. And so we see over here, even though each of them lived maximally, Yitzchak lived 180 years, Avram 175, Yaakov 147, but in their life, what they accomplished, what they brought about, they give meaning to the whole Bria, We've mentioned that the many times we mentioned that the Zohar says that the Orlo is a derivative or expression of the Rav, the Eitz Hadas. Avram Avinu was given the mitzvah of Milo. That means he was able to achieve within himself a level of perfection that if he removes the Orlo, which is a representation of the Ra, he's able to have a relationship with Hashem. And that's when he became Avraham. He was Avram, became Avraham. What's Avraham? Avraham is with Matri Ramach, 248. That's when he was fully in control of every aspect of his being. when he removed that foreskin. And as the Orach Chaim HaKadosh explains, that until you remove that orlo, you're totally shut down spiritually speaking. Only once you remove that, then all the channels of spirituality are open, and then we can talk about addressing your potential. Now, who was able to achieve within himself the level to be able to remove that foreskin, which achieved this level? That's Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was the first circumcised person, Avram. And then he circumcised Yitzchak. B'chol chosvin, brochat Hashem b'mogen Avram. So Rashi says, v'yei brocha. The brocha concludes with him. Everything is Avram. Why? Because if not for the mitzvah of Milah, there wouldn't have been a Yitzchak, there wouldn't have been a Yaakov. So who achieved this new level of value, of existence, relevant to Hashem? That was Avram Avinu. Once he created this new classification called Mohol, that were circumcised, then we can talk about Yitzchak representing what he represented and Yaakov representing what he represented. So again, everything goes back to the Ovos HaKadoshim. And therefore, we're speaking about it's thousands of years, and still Zoche Chasdei Ovos. That we survive in our own merit is not enough merit. But why do we continue? Because Zoche Chasdei Ovos. Because Hashem remembers the chesed of the Ovos, what they represented, what they achieved in their own lifetime. As a result of that, we continue. What happens when the schus ovos are depleted? It comes to an end. Or maybe go name, but then Hashem will be the goyim. Once there's no longer the merit of the ovos HaKadoshim, then he's going to be Moshiach. But as long as we have merit, we still have a chance to achieve. Based on what? We still have bechira, because there's still hope. Hashem says we're going to hold out as long as the schus. Once the schus is depleted totally, then Mashiach will come, because there's no basis any longer to do tshuva, because you don't have sufficient merit to carry on beyond that point. So everything is what? Akev. Akev is keva, is Torah. The Chazal tells, B'schus Yaakov we left Egypt. There's a Chazal, the famous tour, cites the three Ugolim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Each one corresponds to one of the Ovos HaKadoshim. Avram is what? Is Pesach. Shavuos is Yitzchak. And Sukkot is what? And it's based on Sukkim, is Sukkot. That's Yaakov Avinu. So again, the whole spiritual infrastructure of Klal Yisrael, of the Ovos HaKadoshim, and everything functions within that capacity, and we're able to grow and advance only because we ourselves are a representation of the Ovos HaKadoshim. V'hoya ekev tishmun. What is the word v'hoya? And it will be v'hoya. So over here he explains, he quotes a medrash. V'yizbarav derech omim zal ein v'hoya elo simcha. V'hoya is the expression of joy. V'hoya ekev. When do you have a right to rejoice? Ekev. So if you go with the Balaturim, that if you actually fulfill all the Aseres Dibros in its entirety, then you have a reason to rejoice. Meaning, don't rejoice prematurely, because you understand, you may never arrive there. But when do you have a right to rejoice? If actually you've reached a certain milestone in Avodas Hashem, v'hoya ekev, v'hoya, now you have a right to rejoice. Ein v'hoya lo shet simcha. V'hine Adon HaNeviim bo b'noam dvorov. Is the Adon, the master of the prophets, came with the pleasant of his words. Lo'oyer b'musa noim. He's giving musa in a very pleasant way. Came lo'odom l'smoch el k'shishmor lasos as kol asher tziva Hashem lasos. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't be proud or you shouldn't feel fortunate when you do a mitzvah. Definitely, no question. But to rejoice, that's only when you fulfill all the mitzvahs. But if you feel that you fall short of any of the mitzvahs Hashem, whether it's positive or negative, all of Omer Shlomo quotes Pasuk Kelis, you can rejoice. What are you rejoicing about? If you're there, you rejoice. If you're not there yet, there's no reason to rejoice. U'omro hoyo simcha shtei l'cho ekev tishul pirush ekev hu sofat betachlis. Deo shomatzinu sheishtamshu chazal b'loshen ha-mishnah bikvus of the Mashiach ikvus at the end of time. He bigmar zman be also yikra ikvos. I mean, at the end of your life, if you do a self-analysis, where have you arrived, and you realize that you're where you should be, then you would voyo. Now, there's a story I tell over in the past. We know that the Chassam Sofer, his first Rebbe, who had a major impact on his life, was Reb Nosson Adler. Reb Nosson Adler, the Chassam Sofer, his name was Reb Moshe Sofer. He was born in Frankfurt, Germany. And Reb Nosson Adler was in Germany. He was his Rebbe when he was 16, 17 years old. And all the Kabbalah that the Chassam Sofer was a great Mekubal, was from his Rebbe, Reb Nosson Adler. Reb Nosson Adler was a Kohen, and when the Chassam Sofer referred to his Rebbe, he used to refer to him as HaKohen HaGodol. Like the Kohen Gadol, that's the way he esteemed him and he revered him. That was his dimension. So there was a story, I once told over a story in the past. It was in the winter, and there was a question of pigeon shvuyim. Pigeon shvuyim, there are many mitzvahs that we don't do. If you're not a Kohen, the mitzvah has no relevance to you. So we speak about, we're obligated to tarek mitzvahs. All the mitzvahs I say have no relevance to us. There's a mitzvah of doing the service in the Beis HaMikdash. That's a Kohen. A negative command. A Kohen is not permitted to marry a divorcee. So that losaseh, that negative command has relevance to the Kohen, does not have relevance to the non-Kohen. So Tayag, the totality of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael, as we discussed many times, that every neshama is part of the network. Each of us are connected to one another. So in the totality, Klal Yisrael has tarek mitzvahs. So we fulfill all tarek mitzvahs when all Jews are involved, all the various components, whether Yisrael, Levi, or Kohen, that's tarek mitzvahs. Okay? So he had a situation of pigeon shvuyim, and Reb Nosson Adler was a very frail person, health-wise. Didn't weigh very much. And he says to his Talmud, the Chassam Sofer, we have to go out, travel. It was winter. We have to redeem somebody who was taken captive. Pigeon shvuyim, great mitzvah. As they're going in the coach, and it started to snow, and the coach slid off the road into a ditch. So the driver goes to a farm, and the farmer, not a Jew, comes. So the coach was being pulled by horses, and he brings an ox from the farm, and he hitches the ox to the coach. So the horses and the ox are pulling the coach out of this ditch. And the snow out. The snow is already maybe a foot deep. And the coach is rocking as every jolt. And the Chassam Sofer finds his Rebbe in the snow. So he figured, he's a very frail person, very light person. He wasn't able to withstand the jolt. He fell out of the coach into the snow. So he picks his Rebbe up, puts him back in the coach. Covers with the furs, with the quilt, whatever they had there. And then a moment later, he finds his Rebbe back in the snow, and his Rebbe's ecstatic, and he's dancing, and he knows his Rebbe didn't lose his mind. So he says to his Rebbe, what's going on? He says, you don't understand what we just merited. When do we have a chance in our lives to fulfill the mitzvah of lo sachrosh b'shor v'chamor yachtov? You're not permitted to work, to plow with two species of animals simultaneously. He says, do you realize what happened? The horses are hitched to the coach. The farmer brings an ox, and they're pulling the coach out. You're not permitted to be the coach. Hashem gave us an opportunity to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of lo sachrosh b'shor v'chamor yachtov, two species. Why did we merit that mitzvah? We've never fulfilled the mitzvah in our lives. The answer is mitzvah goreres mitzvah, because we want to do a mitzvah pidyon shvuyim. So Hashem gave us a merit, gave us the merit that we could do another mitzvah. Otherwise, that mitzvah would have never presented itself in our lives. This was his joy. Voya ekev tishmun. If there are many mitzvahs that we have, when was the last time you did Kisei Adam? You learned Kisei Adam. There's a mitzvah say to cover the blood of a bird, a kosher bird. After shechita, to cover its blood. It's mitzvah say. Did you ever fulfill it? Remember when I was a younger person, I was first married, Rabbi Heineman in Baltimore, he was doing he slaughtered his own chickens. It was before Pesach. So I asked him then, because I knew the Chassam Sofer always tried to bring about a situation to do a mitzvah that he never did before. So I asked Rabbi Heineman, can I cover the blood? He says, definitely cover the blood. For him, it was, wasn't something unusual. So that was the only time in my life that I fulfilled the mitzvahs of Kisei Adam. That's what it is. Ekev Tishmun. If at the end of your lifetime, you fulfilled all the mitzvahs, which you could have fulfilled, then you rejoice. But let's say you fell short of certain mitzvahs. For whatever reason. You never know. You never know what kind of claim could be against you. You could have done it. Maybe you were an onus. And there's no claim, but you never know. So only when you fulfill all the mitzvahs and where you should be, then we talk about voyo, then the simcha. Then at the end of your life, you could rejoice. Otherwise, a person really has to worry because you never know how exactly your record is going to be evaluated.
Rabbi, just the story. This.
Chasidei Yisrael. He says, as the statement of the Chasidei Yisrael, is in parentheses, it says, Chovs al-Vovos b'shar ha-prishus, sha'porush, evelo belibo, v'tzaloso b'fonov. A person who abstains from physical involvement, in his heart, he's concerned. He's like he's grieving. But on his face, he's beaming with joy. What does that mean? If you don't know exactly, ultimately there's be a day of reckoning. And you never know if you fall short of where you're supposed to be, it's going to be a level of embarrassment, nothing compared to that level of embarrassment. So in his heart, the chassid is worried. Evelo belibo, but solos aponov. Veitzorch loma mishabuchuyev roshel lemelech. That if you know after you've evaluated your life and you feel you're in a good place, then what? Then there's a reason to be sameach, to rejoice. Otherwise, but I'll tell you another thing. If a person always feels he may have fallen short, so then before you leave this world, you can do tshuva. A person feels he's in a good place and he's where he should be, he has no incentive to do tshuva. But if you're worried that maybe you're not quite where you should be, then you're going to make the last moment corrections before you leave this world. So this whole concept of simcha, it denies you certain things that you should really be involved in the process, but because you're convinced that you're in a place where you're not at it, you don't do what you should do. What's the bracha? The fruit of your womb will be blessed, the fruit of your ground will be blessed, the wheat, the wine, the oil. That's a shkara lefecha. What shkara lefecha means? The offspring of your herds, vasher sonecha, and the offspring of your flocks. So Rashi says, why are the offspring of the herds called shkara lefecha? Take a look at Rashi. Pasuk Yud Gimel. V'lodi b'korcha, the offspring of your cattle, shenakevim shakeres meiel, which the female she casts out of her womb. The word shgar means casting out. When the animal gives birth, the female cow, it's mishageres meiel. It casts it out. Yeah. So once says Rav Kalatsky, we find that before Hashem brought the Mabul, destroyed the world with the Mabul, it says he will never bring another great flood on the world Because the inclination of man is evil min urov. Why is a person called nar? Nar is a youth. He's ra min urov. So Rabbi Yochanan says in Sanhedrin, when does the Yetzer Hara attach itself to the human being? Mishen ninar me'imo. Ninar. What's ninar? When he's emptied from his mother's womb. Emptied. So I asked Rav Kalatsky, when we speak about the human being, he's referred to as nar because he's ninar me'imo. Nar means empty. By the animal, shkara lefecho. Right? Shebeshageres. The mother just throws it out, throws its offspring out. I mean, it's the same birth process. Right? The animals in labor, the human beings in labor. But regarding human being, it's yes levadam ra min urov. It's ra from the time it's emptied. The womb is emptied. That's the question I asked Rav Kalatsky. Okay. The Maral says that the pasuk is, why is a human being called Adam? Because he's made of earth. So Maral asks, when was Adam created on the sixth day of creation? When was the animal created? Also on the sixth day of creation. So why is the animal called Behema? And the Adam is called Adam. Adam, he's called Adam from the word Adama, because he was created from the earth. And the animal was also created from the earth. But yet the animal is called Chaya, Behema, domesticated, undomesticated. That's what the Maral asks. If you remember, we mentioned this Maral not long ago. So the Maral answers, what is earth? Earth represents potential. A human being, every moment of your life, you're born with an objective, with a potential. You have the ability throughout your lifetime to act on situations, to address that potential and actualize the potential. An animal, the first day of its life, the last day of its life, it's the same animal. It's just in volume, it's a larger animal. But in terms of what it is, its essence, it's the same animal. A human being is continuously changing either for the better or for the worse. So therefore, Adam, like earth, you have virgin soil. You leave it fallow, it has no value. If you actually utilize it and cultivate it as you should, all life comes out of the earth. That's the Maral. Therefore, the Adam is called Adam and the Behem is called Behem. That's the Maral of Prague. A human being, in terms of what he is, in the utero, out of the utero, in the womb, out of the womb, it's what is it? The human being just happens to be in a receptacle. The receptacle is the mother. Because everything, the potential is based on the neshama of that person. Whatever that profile neshama is, that will determine the potential of that child. You're only emptying. He's leaving one location to go another location. An animal is the same animal. Inside, outside, it's the same animal. So all you're doing is you're casting it out. It's not like you have a person in the room, now he leaves the room. That child in the utero is that same person, except now it just has to go through a process of development to address whatever it is. So it's actualizing potential. An animal, when it goes out, it's like you throw something out. It's cast from its womb. It doesn't have any innate value. A human being it has innate values. You're just emptying it from its location. It's a change of location. That's why I shared this with Rav Kalatsky, and he said to me, he didn't say definitely, he may have had 600 other reasons why, but he heard what I said. We'd be more blessed than all nations. There will not be among you okar, a person who's sterile, or a woman who's barren. Male is okar, akora, among you, and even among your flocks, your herds, among your animals. Rashi, okar, what's okar? She'edamolud. He's not able to conceive, to bring about conception. We find by Noach, the first time the word is mentioned in Torah is when Noach was born. Somebody had to silence their computer. Okay. Somebody has to silence the computer. I still hear it. Okay. It says, Vayolid Ben by Noach. When Noach is born, it says Ben. Why is it mentioned Ben? What does the son mean? So Rashi says, cites Chazal to Medrash, because Noach is Binyanu Shalom. He is the building of the world. The word Ben comes from the word Binyan, because he's Binyanu Shalom. He's the future of existence. All humanity perished. The only one who didn't perish was Noach and his family. So when Noach came into existence, he was Binyanu Shalom. Or could say, over there, Rashi cites the Chazal, who invented the plow? Noach invented the plow. So until then, they had to contend with the curse of Adam, thistles and weeds. It was very, very difficult to plant anything. When you have the plow, it made it easy. So that's also, that could be in the physical sense, Binyanu Shalom. But then represents Binyanu Shalom. What's the word oka? What does oka mean? To be oker in Hebrew, to uproot something. You uproot something, that means if a person is barren or he's sterile, he's not going anywhere. He's come to an end. Among you, there's no such thing as what you represent is going to come to an end. There's going to be a continuation. That's what it means. Now, the concept of okar, if you observe the mitzvahs, you'll merit the ultimate, as it says. The whole concept of okar, barren or sterile, has no relevance to you. You'd be worthy of unlimited bracha. What does that mean? Within the context of spirituality, there's no such thing as limitation. Illness has to do with the physical world. That's it. As it says, I will remove from you all the diseases and the illnesses of Mitzrayim. Also, because that all has to do with limitation. If you live a life within the context of spirituality, you're not subject to limitations. Okar means there's no continuation. There is a continuation, just keeps going. So we mentioned the other day that we find that Avram Avinu, he had 3 angels visiting his home who came in human form. Who were the 3 angels? One was Raphael. He's the Malach HaRafu. He came to heal Avram Avinu from his circumcision. It was the 3rd day of the circumcision. Gabriel came on his way to destroy Sodom, Gabriel. And Michael came to inform Sarah that she was going to have a child. And the Torah says Sarah was Akora. Sarah was a barren woman. Now, why was Michael the one who came to inform Sarah that she was going to be the one? Michael is really considered the archangel of Klal Yisrael, Michael. So I saw, unrelated to this, we spoke many times in the past, just recently, about the number 100. The number 100 on the positive side of the equation counters the 100 on the negative side. That's the counterforce to evil. We mentioned many times, many examples. Me'er Brachos, the height of the Heichel was 100 amos, but Michael, the Vilna Gaon says, is 101. The gematria of Michael is 101. So the concept of Akora is what? That's within the physical realm. Anything outside the physical realm has no relevance to Akora, to be barren. So Michael, who's 101, he supersedes existence. It's not he contends with the negative. He surpasses it. He's the one who told, sorry, Menu, you're going to have a ben. You can have a continuation. Although now you have Akora, it has no relevance to any longer. So again, Akora over here, it says, if you have Ekem Tishmun, all limitations has no relevance to you. Whether it's your grain, whether it's your procreation, everything goes forward in the most positive way. You're not subject to illness. Because all that's compromising, that's limitation. That's the understanding. Okay.